Hello and welcome to another post-game show. This time a little bit different. I have a guest as well. You probably know him, the PS Penguin himself. Curtis, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm
Good.
very excited to talk about this game.
Yeah, of course that game coming out July 17th, 2020, Paper Mario the Origami King.
Dude, I have reservations due to the recent Paper Mario games. I am still very excited for this one. But that trailer
It was
was
dark.
incredible.
It was kind of dark too.
Honestly, I don't know if I ever thought I would use the word epic to describe a Paper Mario trailer. But I think in this case it's truly fitting to use that word.
Yeah. Well, it's the Heavy Rain sequel we've always wanted, I think.
Yeah.
But again, there's also another game coming out July 17th. That is the State of Play we just got from May 14th, Ghost of Tsushima from Sucker
Wrapping
Punch
up
Productions.
quite a week of video game news and
Yeah.
announcements.
Yeah, we got like the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, which is kind of a weird thing because they already have done that. If you remember that HD thing they did. Back in 2012, so that was kind of a weird announcement. We got like the
Just
Mafia trilogy thing. Yeah, let's do it again. We're Activision. Let's reboot it again. Let's do it again. But yeah, we got 18 minutes and 40 seconds of Ghost of Tsushima. Some details, including exploration and combat. So I guess starting off, like, Curtis, what did you think before watching this? What did you think of Ghost of Tsushima? What was your hype index of it?
I'd probably say like an 8, right? For me, like Sucker Punch has been just like bread and butter, right? Like everything they've done recently, I've really liked a lot. I've loved the Infamous series. We were actually talking before recording. Like I have all the trophies and all the Infamous games and First Light. So I'm ready. Like I'm super ready for this game. It's one of those things where it's like, we haven't seen a whole lot of it really, and even after the State of Play, I feel like there's still a lot we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Which I think was a little surprising. I was expecting to come out of this being like, all right, I've seen it all. Like I've seen every part of this game. But no, I was just ready. Like I was like, I don't need to see more. I know I'm in. I know I'm in on this. One thing that I think was a little surprising, maybe probably in a good way, and became pretty apparent early in the State of Play is that even if they don't say it, it's pretty clear that there's a lot of Breath of the Wild fans at Sucker Punch.
Oh, you bet.
Or it definitely, this is one of those games where it really feels like the effects of Breath of the Wild are being felt. And a lot of like just the core design of the open world of this game.
Yeah, I feel like there was one of the shots they actually show in the State of Play where they're like climbing up the side of a mountain, like and just like the scope, the colors, and like the wind and like the setting of the sun, like it looks so many like Breath of the Wild vibes.
Yeah,
and as someone who didn't play much of it, but yeah,
they said early on, there was like a variety of voiceovers throughout the State of Play, and one of the first things they said was like, how do we make the world interesting to explore? Like it was one of the things we thought about, and we're like, well, the way to do that is to put interesting things into the world, like to make it that when you looked out onto the world, you would see something, and you would just want to explore it because of what you saw, not because there was a checkpoint there, not because there were waypoints, which I think they've said there aren't any in the game.
Yeah, that was a news thing like a couple weeks ago. That was everyone's like, what do you mean? Like, there's no waypoints? How is anyone going to find? But you find out like with the wind and foxes and birds and all that stuff. Like that's such a great way to do it with minimal UI.
Yeah. Yeah. It just even with the map, right? Like he pulls up the map. He like puts a thing on the map. Like it's very Breath of the Wild. It's super, like it's a lot of it is very remnant of that, of just creating your own path through this world and just like exploring it at your own leisure, finding places that you want to go to because those are the things that look interesting to you and not because the game tells you to.
Yeah, and even like grabbing
awesome.
the horse and all of that, it just kind of adds to that kind of gameplay of all of it.
Yeah, so I mean, the world exploration I think is like the highlight coming out of the state of play. For me, it feels like they were saying all the right things. You know, if we look, there's like so many open worlds these days. And really even coming out of Sony, right? Like it feels like there's actually quite a few Sony first party games this generation that are these big open worlds to explore. Yeah. Days Gone, Horizon, Ghost of Tsushima. But this being like, it really feels like they do care a lot and they put a lot of thought into that. One of the things they mentioned, I hate, like, I don't want to turn this into the like Breath of the Wild cast.
Sure.
It's just there were so many things they said that was like, yeah, like it's okay that it's like that because that game is, considering the way people feel about that game, that's totally fine. Please make it more like that. But they mentioned like shrines, right? And they mentioned things where it's like, yeah, if you just are observant throughout the world, if you notice things, you might see something that just looks a little different or looks a little off, and like if you go and investigate that, you might find something. And that was totally how that game handled things. You would be climbing a mountain and be like, oh hey, that thing looks a little weird, I wonder if that's anything, I wonder if that's a puzzle. And it was so natural and organic, which made it feel more special. So
yeah, and they show the map several times, and I think you can kind of see, like, it does that, you know, kind of the thing that open world games do, where like it only shows you like a little bit, and like if you want to do like Far Cry or Assassin's Creed, you go climb the tower and see more. Like, I wonder how much of the world is actually unlocked from the beginning, and how much you can actually, like, I guess, explore or see from the beginning until you have to, like, oh, now you have to go to the sync points and unlock more of the island.
They didn't really get into that. They also didn't really get into story stuff, and I feel like they haven't. Some of the trailers that have been released like have cutscenes and have stories, things happening, but it feels like they really just have not talked about that at all. And I mean, I guess it's hard to tell if that's a good or bad thing, right? Like there's probably an element of them wanting to keep things secret, but they did also mention in the state of play that it sounds like they plan on sharing a lot more stuff before this game comes out.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because, like, so the thing I actually did immediately after watching the state of play was I actually went back and watched the Game Awards trailer that was like 4 minutes, and it shows like a little bit of like cutscene story stuff, but not very much. But like you actually see, like, watching it again now, you're like seeing like the little super cuts at the very end of the trailer where like, oh, you see smokestacks in the distance, and you're like, oh, now that stuff all making sense. So kind of going back and watching those like original trailers are kind of really, really fun to see. And yeah, like you mentioned, they have, like, Nate Fox says, like, we have so much more to show you, which I don't think it's going to be like another state of play, but at least like something that didn't really touch on the story. I think all we can really gather is that it's like about the Mongol invasion of the island of Tsushima.
That and one thing they've mentioned is that it's grounded, that there aren't like fantasy elements and things like that, which I thought about during the state of play. So there's pretty early on, you follow the bird, and there's like the person like laying against the rocks, and they're like, oh, don't go to the shrine, it's haunted by spirits or whatever. And I was thinking about how, like, in any other game, you would go to the shrine and there would be like spirits, or there would be monsters or yokai or whatever, right? And like that's not the case for this game. And what typically I do, like, enjoy the more fantastical elements, like in Assassin's Creed, right? I'm always like, yeah, I want the weird stuff. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I want there to be, Norse mythology stuff bleeding in. I want that stuff to be there. But in this game, like, I'm trying to like be okay with it. Like, I'm trying to be like, yeah, like, it'll be cool that this is grounded. It's interesting. And with that, I wanted to gauge your thoughts on the combat.
Yeah.
Because I think, speaking of being grounded and trying to be realistic, the combat looks like it's going for that, right? Maybe for better or worse.
Yeah, so we got the two things being Jin the Samurai and Jin the Ghost. I think certainly the ghost is more appealing, I guess, let's say.
Sure.
It kind of turns that game into like an Assassin's Creed kind of thing,
Yeah.
which I don't know if it's... I'm trying to decide, like, if I go in as the ghost and then I screw up one little thing, do I just go murder everybody? Do I switch to samurai and just go murder everybody anyways? Kind of like how a lot of stealth games kind of operate. Like, oh, you got seen, and now you just kind of murder everybody. I don't know if it's going to be like an Infamous level, like, like not necessarily good versus bad, but like you choose one path or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if I see myself going one way, I'm probably going to stick with that. Like, I'm probably not going to bounce back and forth.
I think I saw someone mention, and it might have been like when they pulled up the map or something. Someone noticed there was some piece of UI that seemed to hint that like your notoriety as the ghost would build over time.
Okay.
So I was hearing, like, listening to people theorize that maybe because they talked about how if you go in as the ghost, like, they fear you, that you are known, and that there is like a level of fear that is in play. And so I wonder if maybe that is, instead of a good and evil thing, it's like, if you play stealthily, if you do kind of take on this persona of the ghost, that over the course of the game, your notoriety will build up such that, like, maybe at first they're like, who is that guy? Like, what's up with that mask? What's he doing here? And then towards the end of the game, as you build it up, like, maybe they'll be like, oh my god, like this myth, right? Like the ghost, like, is he real? Is he not? And then he shows up and they're terrified. That could be kind of interesting, right? Like, I guess it reminds me a little bit of Batman, where like you hear the thugs be like, it's the Bat.
Yeah.
He's here.
And I think, like, so like when they said like and we do see a little bit of that fear kind of one point where like Jin is still like no mercy. But like when they said, like, because I think we've heard that term like dishonorable, like even before this, I was just thinking like, oh, he must have done something in the story where he's like, wrong, like, a normal story trope where like, oh, this is his redemption because he was dishonorable. But like really it's like in terms of the gameplay, because he like dishonored, like he's not fighting with honor, basically. Like he's using these like guerrilla tactics, and that's what makes him dishonorable.
And I think there's like a recent trailer that came out, or at least I'm pretty sure it's a recent. I watched it not too long ago for this game, and it's like more of a story trailer. There's a lot of cutscenes, and one of the cutscenes, like, there's a character that says to Jin something along the lines of like, if you go down this path, you will dishonor all of us, or something like that. So you saying that reminds me of that scene. So maybe there is something to it where... Yeah. I mean, maybe there's good and bad endings, right? Like, maybe there is an ending where, like, if you are the ghost, it's... the ending's maybe not too different, but maybe there is, like, this element of, like, your character itself is looked down upon by a lot of, like, the, let's say, good characters in the game. I don't know.
Couple just like in this kind of like really in the weeds stuff that I kind of wrote down some notes. So there's a part where Jin throws some wind chimes, and then there's a part where he throws some firecrackers. Do you think there's any difference to, like, of course they both like make noise, but like, do you think they just do, like, this is like me like really looking into things, like, do they just do the same thing, or are they like completely different, or what are your kind of thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm like having the video up and I'm looking, like, watching the firecracker moment, like, as you're saying this. I mean, that one, at least from what they showed, like, the firecracker is like, it's on the ground, it's a visual, like, thing that they see and they run up to it. I wonder if the wind chimes are maybe more of like, more to cause confusion rather than like a specific distraction. Like, if the firecracker is like, hey, here's a thing that they see that they will run to. I wonder if the wind chimes are more like, it sparks that, like, what is that? Like, I hear a noise, I can't really tell what or where this is coming from. And so that's more of a confusion tactic rather than, like, I'm specifically going to lure you guys to this location.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, to me, it's just like my... we've played enough video games that you're like, oh, we know what this does. We know what a rock in Far Cry does, and that kind of thing.
And I guess, like, that only thing that's interesting for this game is what do they do to differentiate it, right? Like, because there's a lot of games, a variety of types of games where It's like you can be stealthy or you can run in and not be like, and I don't know that they necessarily showed how this is different from any of those. I was gonna say, I'm curious what you thought of the sword combat, right? The melee combat itself. It's because what they've shown, and even what they showed in like the reveal gameplay footage, it could be harder than it looks, but they make it look very simple. I think the closest comparison is maybe the earlier Assassin's Creed or Batman games, where it's counter, kill, or parry or whatever. Just in this, it looks like a lot of times it's like a one-hit kill, which I think has a merit to it. Like that in and of itself could be really cool.
Yeah, when I first saw like them start doing the combat, like as the samurai, I was like, oh, this is going to be where everybody stands in a circle.
Yeah.
And you take them on one by one kind of thing. But it did seem a little bit different. I'm really interested to see like all of the different stances that you can use. Like one of them was like water stance, I think it's something like that. And he's like holding the sword above his head. I don't know if that's like, I'm a person who likes to brute force his way through games. So like sometimes I'll just like, they all just kind of are the same to me, where I just kind of like, oh, okay, like maybe I should actually take a step back and really, try to fight this like the actual like way it needs to be fought. Like, of course, no spoilers. We had our whole long Final Fantasy VII remake spoiler cast, but like there was a boss that I fought, and I was like, oh, okay, I actually need to like learn what I'm doing here and like learn how to counter rather than just completely just try and mash buttons. So I like that if there's parts where like if I can go into a water stance and there's clearly an enemy that does not like that clearly can counter the water stance, like that would be interesting to me to make me like, okay, I actually need to learn like what's going on here rather than just like, oh, I can just do this stance and just eventually win. Like if that makes sense.
Right. I think it does. And I don't know, watching the stances, I think just because it's what I've played recently that's most similar. Like I was thinking about Neo, and it was just like I was like, well, it's another thing where like a lot of games do these like stance based melee combats, and even then I didn't feel like, I don't know, I feel like I haven't seen enough, or maybe the combat is such that you just have to play it to like really see how this plays out.
Yeah,
because just as it looks, from what we've seen, it either just looks very easy or very simple.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. Like, I probably would prefer to do stealth anyway, so we'll see. I don't know what I think of it yet.
So even going back to the stealth part, it's right after, like, they show the firecracker. There's a part where Jin, like, gets up on, like a wall, and there's two enemies, and there's two prompts, and one is assassinate, and the other one is slaughter. And I really was just curious, like, what, because the demo does the assassinate prompt, and the slaughter prompt is on like the heavier enemy he does the critical strike on. But I just was curious, like, what that slaughter prompt was.
I didn't catch that, but I do think it really feels quick. Like that plays into, I think, what we were talking about a few minutes ago, which is this idea of being dishonorable.
Sure.
And I mean, given the setting and given what kind of people, like, the characters we're playing as, right, like, and who this is about, like, I feel like that makes sense. And like that, I think it could be interesting if the story gets into that kind of stuff, this idea of being dishonorable.
Yeah, and like maybe
even when you're fighting your enemies and fighting, like, like fighting people, like people that you do not get along with, that are dangerous to your own people, like this idea of like you can kill them in an honorable way or dishonorable, and like how does that impact not just you but also the way people see you. And I think that feels like that's a little bit more interesting than like a good and evil thing.
Yeah, and it even sounds like that term slaughter almost like seems to maybe even instill fear, maybe. So like maybe that's more of like like definitely through some of it, like it's a gruesome kind of game. Like there's
sure.
People begging, there's blood, and I don't know if there's like any like decapitations or limbs flying off kind of stuff, but
I think I saw some. I think I saw at least like some arms but
Okay.
I might have misseen it. I don't know.
Curtis, are you ready for my nitpick
Yeah.
of the night? So there's kind of two where I'm like really invested into this, and then I remember, oh right, this is still a game. So there's the one of the parts where they're playing as the stealth part, and for some reason, when Jin shoots a couple of the enemies with the bow and arrow, they like launch up into the air like an inch, and then they just like fall down. I don't know why, but this is just such a nitpick that like it just like it's not like if I got shot with an arrow, I'm not gonna like jump up in the air and then like fall to the ground. And I just thought that was like that was one of those moments I was watching it, then I'm like, oh right, this is still a video game. Like I don't know why I was like so immersed. And then there's the other part where right before they blow up the powder keg, the gunpowder keg or whatnot, there's like the enemy that's just like standing in the corner with his back to Jin, and I'm like, what is that? Oh right, this is still a game. That's right.
Which I think gets into some of the other stuff that's kind of in the back half or last third of this state of play that I do appreciate. Right, I think we've gotten to a point where there's a lot of games, a lot of AAA games that they aim for realism, and this game certainly does. Right, like this game certainly is aiming for a certain kind of vibe and trying to be grounded. And one thing they mentioned at the beginning and then they got into later is like all the different modes of play. And one thing I really appreciate that this game is doing, at least from what they've shown so far, and I appreciate this in any game that does it, is just having a lot of different like fun things, fun extra stuff. So I mean, there's something small like you can collect these. I think you collect these like dyes, and you can dye your armor. And it seems to be purely aesthetic, but like that's cool. Like that's a very MMO kind of thing, right? But like I like that. That's neat. I like that you can collect, like using collectibles or potentially collectibles to then dye your armor to different colors that you prefer. That's neat. That's a small thing. There's also the black and white mode, the like samurai movie mode, which is really cool. It's like, okay, like I don't know if I'll play through that. Maybe the second playthrough I'll do black and white, but like that's really neat.
It seemed like to be more than a filter also. It like ramps the rain and the wind up at the same time. So it's not like, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's a film grain filter. And like other games have done that. But then like they talk more about it, and it seems like more in depth than just that. Yeah,
that's super cool. And speaking of effects, right? Like they've taken their photo mode and just like amped it up to 11. The infamous games, Second Son, is I think was one of the first games with the photo mode.
I think so.
I think they even mentioned it
as well.
And this game like has a photo mode, but they've added so many different features, so many different like filters and different things you can do. You can make basically short like videos. It definitely feels like they've seen people like what's the guy's name on Twitter? Is it like Shuni Legend or something?
I know exactly who you're talking. I don't know the exact name. Something like that.
Something like that, like him, and then there are others that do it as well. Like it feels like they've seen that and kind of reacted to it, to purposely like and very easily allow you to make just like really cool, even like maybe not videos, but like just GIFs.
Yeah, just awesome GIFs on Twitter.
So yeah, like that stuff, like they've added like a lot of like little stuff like that I think is really cool and helps. I feel like it helps kind of like take things that extra step. So all that stuff I like a lot, and it's all very video gamey kind of things, but I think it helps a lot, and I'm super into it.
Yeah, and kind of the other big thing they talk about is the Japanese VO is available from the start, which I kind of figured it would be, but I'm glad they really highlighted it, because I can tell you, I think there's a pretty good chance I'm actually going to play with the Japanese VO from the start.
I think a lot of people will.
I think, and honestly, like if it wasn't for playing Yakuza Kiwami like a year or so ago, that I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. But like just just hearing the voice actors, and I'm like, I don't think I could ever play it. Like it was kind of, I think maybe we talked about it when Judgment came out, because that had English VO for like the first time, like in a game like that. And I was like, I still don't know if I will play this in English. Like, no, I'm probably still going to play this with the Japanese VO, like even if I play it. So Are you probably gonna play it with the Japanese VO from the start?
I might save it for like the black and white playthrough.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Feels
cool.
like that's more fitting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like that could be super cool.
It could be like a trophy to like play through with the Japanese VO, or I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Oh,
yeah. The entire game
funny.
again.
I think honestly, the game is just so good looking that like, as much as I appreciate the black and white mode, to me it's just like, I need it. I need it in color.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like, all the different areas they show, like the different leaves, the different colors, like it needs to have, like, I don't think I could play, like, it's just, you're not doing it service if you play through that samurai cinema thing from the beginning. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I just feel like you're kind of like shortening yourself of the experience a little bit. But you know what? Play games.
Like, I'm just watching the scene where he's running through, like, along a trail in a forest. There's like the yellow leaves blowing, like covering the ground. Like you see the wind, like literally, like they talk about the wind, like the guiding wind, right? And like just being able to see it. Like I think I think it fits with the setting, anyways. But this is easily probably one of the best looking worlds I think in a game I've seen.
So this is kind of going off on like a tangent, I guess. But if this state of play was called PlayStation 5 reveal event gameplay, and this was what they showed, this looks like PlayStation 5, like a PlayStation 5 could look. I think I would be pretty impressed. Like, would you be pretty impressed if like this is what, if they said this was PlayStation 5, would you even be impressed by what they show here?
I think the first time I saw Ghost of Tsushima, I was pretty blown away.
Yeah.
Granted, the first time I saw it was in a movie theater.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that definitely like has an element to it. But I think, if you remember the first time we saw it, there was a huge open field. That was pretty like breathtaking. I think so. I think like it's tough, right? Because like this comes a day after we saw Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was a whole other thing.
Yeah, that's true.
I think this looks fantastic, and I mean, I think we will absolutely get PS5 games at launch that do not look this good.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's awesome. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, and honestly, on a personal level, like I didn't really know if I was going to pick this up at launch prior to this. Like I was just like, it's probably, we were talking about before recording, like we're talking about getting like Days Gone, and it's like, yeah, I could wait where that game ends up being like $20. Like I don't need to get that at launch. And I kind of felt like this was the same thing for me, but I don't know. After seeing this, I'm like, I need to know more. Like I need to, I don't want to call it the fear of missing out, but it's like, I need to be there with the post game,
I will say,
spoiler cast, all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to be day one on this. I am a little bummed that this and Paper Mario are the same day, because like both of those, Paper Mario, but this isn't the Paper Mario show, but a little bummed that they're not. Yeah, it could be, because like those are both that I want to get day one and like play through. I'll figure out a way. It's the epitome of first world issues, but watching this video and seeing the film grain in the black and white, like it looks really nice. I'm super in day one. I will say, I think based on what we've seen in the state of play, specifically with the combat, I wouldn't be surprised if this has a muted reaction in reviews. Like, sure. I think if you look at like The Last of Us Part 2, like that's something that I think most people, maybe spoilers aside, are anticipating that game to review very well. Right? Like I would be stunned if that game reviews, I don't know, under like in the like low
7 or something. Yeah.
Like, even the low 8s, like it would be pretty surprising.
Yeah.
Considering what that game is. And maybe I shouldn't maybe it's not healthy to have that high expectations for any game. But with Ghost of Tsushima, like I can see this getting 7s. I think I will like it much more than that. Like I think this will be a game that I really, really like a lot. But I look at the combat and I think like I don't know if they've shown us like you look at the open world sections, and I think with the open world, they're saying all the right things. They're obviously taking inspiration from a game that many people would, I think a lot of people, especially reviewers, would say is probably one of the best open world games of the past generation with Breath of the Wild. But I think with the combat, I don't know if we've seen anything that's like, oh wow, this is really like, this is incredible. This is something I haven't seen before. And I guess not that they need to, right? Like, I guess not every game needs to have that. And maybe I'm not articulating it well enough, but seeing the combat in this, it was definitely a moment of, oh, okay, this will be fine, right?
And I think sometimes like we let our imagination go like run wild, where like we still also have to remember like this still has to be a game that has to be accessible. Sure. I guess I guess that's kind of how I see it.
Well, and I mean, you know, what we saw in the state of play doesn't seem to be a story-centric thing. Mm-hmm. And so what we see is an open world game, and this is going to be super reductionist, and I don't like being this way, but I'm just trying to gauge like what I think the reaction might be for reviews. Is you come upon an encampment, and hey, you have options. You can come in guns blazing, or you can be stealthy. But at the end of it, and then like, but you have your destroy shipyard objective right here in the top left corner. You gotta do the thing. You gotta take out the captains, or you gotta defeat all the enemies in the encampment. And when you do that, maybe more of the map shows up. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's a very Ubisoft thing, right? That they got kind of made fun of for. And this might not be that, right? But at least what they've shown in the state of play doesn't necessarily say it's not. Like it feels like it's like, here's a side objective, and it's totally one of those things that you've done in a lot of other games before.
Yeah, and even like when the UI does show up, it is like, oh, take out these people, and then it's like, oh, a bonus objective, like do four of these attacks, and it's like,
and the thing is, like, if it's fun enough, like, it doesn't matter, right? Like,
sure.
If the game itself is fun, like, great, I'll do as many of those as you want me to.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting that I'm looking at, and I haven't quite like figured out how this works, which I think could like. There are spots in the state of play that I wish they would have gone into more detail. I wish that this would have been... There would have been more like, okay, let's walk you through how this combat works. Like, they never really did that. So I'm looking at the bottom left corner, right? And there's, on the UI when it shows up, there's a long red bar that I assume is your health.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's like a series of like gold yellow circles dots above that.
Yeah.
And then above that there's L1, R1.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's your health bar. The dots might be some kind of endurance, some kind of counter meter. L1, R1, I'm not sure. Like, but I wish they would have gone into detail, right? Because I think if you go in and say, hey, this is how this works. This is what we're trying to demonstrate here. This is how you actually play. It's not just I hit a button when they're about to attack and then I counter and then they're dead. I think that would have gone a long way. And kind of like showing like this is what this is. But having not done that, it's like I've seen the game played. I've seen a number of kills, and all I have to go off of is, well, that looks a lot like Batman, so I think I know how this plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd agree, and hopefully like in the so much more to show us little thing they say at the end, maybe there is more in-depth stuff. Like I think even on like a side thing, it was kind of weird that they even like called this, I felt like, the state of play with Ghost of Tsushima, because even like with Last of Us Part 2 and granted the things going on with that game, they've put out these like inside the Last of Us Part 2 where like they are going in depth into other things. So it's like it kind of feels like the same thing, but or maybe we'll get more of after Last of Us comes out, maybe we'll get that series for Ghost of Tsushima where they maybe go a little more in depth. But I guess maybe I appreciate they don't want to like overload us, I guess, if that makes any sense. But but yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I've mostly got to say. Like I think this is definite buy for me too. Any closing thoughts? Anything you need to say to the people? What you thought of Jin or the Ghost?
I pretty much have full confidence in this game. I think, Sucker Punch has proven that they can handle open worlds.
Yeah.
This looks to be quite a bit larger than any of the Infamous games, which is exciting. This is something they've been working on for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like the better part of this decade, really.
Yeah, they seem to take quite a while at times to put out games.
I mean, Infamous, right? Like, the Infamous series, like, was pretty quick. I think it was maybe over a couple years. And even Second Son, like, they got that out relatively early. It was, a few months after the PS4 came out. And then it was Second Light.
First Light.
Or First Light. Second Son, First Light. That DLC expansion came out, I think, fall. I think it was August of that year. And since then, it's just been this.
Year. Yeah.
And that was 2014? I think it was 2014.
I think it was 2014, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're probably working on it before First Light comes out. So you're looking at like 6 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's a new IP.
And see, I think the same thing with the new IP when they went from Sly Cooper to Infamous. Like Sly Cooper 3 was like 2004, and then Infamous wasn't until 2009. So yeah, they really do take their time with new IP for sure.
And I mean, I think that's normal to some extent. Like I definitely think that is pretty normal and expected, especially nowadays. I have full confidence though, right? Like I think what we've seen has looked great. I'm a little I think part of me is a little worried that maybe the combat will be not as fulfilling as I would like it to be. Especially coming from Infamous, right? I think Infamous is just a lot of fun, and this looks to be very different. So I'm hoping I enjoy that part. But I think just the world. I think like everything the first 10 minutes of the state of play, everything they said about how you explore, the animals that guide you to different like shrines, following birds and foxes, like letting the wind guide you. All of that is like just saying everything perfectly.
Yeah.
That alone, I think, is super exciting, in and of itself. So I'm pretty excited. I think I'm gonna like it a lot. So I'm ready. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of like the game that, like, everybody always talks about Last of Us Part 2, and granted, things going on with that, but it just seems like this is the game now, like everybody's talking about. Like I went on like to YouTube. I mean, granted, like, it's predictive stuff or whatnot, and this just happened. But like I literally typed in like GHO, and like all the like search results was like Ghost of Tsushima, blah 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 blah. And I just feel like it's already at like 1.2 million views on the PlayStation YouTube channel.
Yep.
I think like this is going to be the game that I think a lot of people are talking about for the summer. And again,
I think
July 17th, and and PS4 exclusives have been doing pretty well. I think Days Gone sold really well, like when that came out, and back in the PS3 generation, you wouldn't have gotten a game that sold that well.
And it's the last big PS4 exclusive.
Yep.
Too.
Of course.
Like once this is out,
3, of course, but
so I mean, I know they haven't, like, I guess we shouldn't say it, right? But like Knack 3 is going to be out in August, so that's the last big one. But after that, it's it's full steam ahead.
But yeah, it'd be interesting to see in the future if they do a PS5 like retool thing, like not like a definitive edition thing, but like, hey, like it's optimized for PS5 or whatnot. But probably learn more about that in the coming months. Like there's going to be so many more events. This is the stuff I love to do, is like how we just got this reveal and this trailer, and I think it's going to work out well with everything being spread out. Like Ubisoft has a date on their thing, EA has a thing on theirs. Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest still going to be going on, so hopefully we can do more of these little shindigs. So
there's a rumor. I guess we end here, but there's I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a rumor that June 4th.
Yeah, I've
perhaps
seen that.
It's the PlayStation 5 event.
And you'd think they'd start revealing that now, or like they'd maybe start teasing it.
So.
but I don't know. Maybe that might even be like a Nintendo Direct, like 2 days before. They're like, oh, by the way, here's this thing.
2 minutes before. Hey, check this out.
Yeah, exactly. Here's Mark Cerny. Here's another GDC talk. I don't know. But yeah, Curtis, thanks so much for joining me. I guess this is maybe your first post game.
My first post game. Longtime fan, first time caller.
Yeah. Don't forget your late local news, except on the West Coast. Reruns of Seinfeld coming up next.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
and live PD afterwards.
Live, yeah, and don't forget about those 3:00 in the morning reruns of Cops. So we'll be here to spoil those episodes of Cops next week. And,
Until next time.
Until next time, we'll see you later. Thanks.